Stop everything for a moment, because what just happened in Hollywood is not a rumor, not a vague celebrity whisper, and definitely not the clean breakup story fans were first given. After weeks of silence that had fans dissecting every unfollow, every missing like, every awkward pause in interviews, Pierre has finally spoken, and the truth behind his breakup with Teyana is shaking the internet like an earthquake no one saw coming. For months, the public narrative looked simple. Busy schedules. Two talented people going in different directions. A quiet split handled with maturity and respect. But insiders were already warning that the story being sold to the public was only the polished surface of something far more emotional, far more complicated, and far more explosive. Because behind that calm announcement was a relationship that insiders say had been quietly cracking long before the world realized anything was wrong. Late-night conversations that reportedly turned into arguments. Private messages that insiders claim read like emotional confessions. Moments where both of them allegedly realized they were drifting apart, but neither one wanted to be the person who said it out loud. And then something happened that changed everything. According to people close to the situation, Aaron recently revealed a truth that had been locked behind closed doors for months. A truth about what really caused the relationship to collapse. Not cheating. Not scandal. Something far more devastating. Something that insiders say cut deeper than betrayal. Because when Aaron finally opened up about the breakup, the explanation reportedly exposed a hidden tension that had been building quietly between them for months, and once fans heard the whispers of what he said, the internet exploded. Now social media is in meltdown mode, old interviews are being re-examined frame by frame, and fans are asking the same chilling question. Was this breakup really about timing? Or was there a deeper truth neither of them wanted the public to know? Because what insiders are now claiming about the final weeks of their relationship paints a completely different picture of what was happening behind the scenes. And if the leaked messages people are talking about are real, then the moment Aaron finally decided to reveal the truth might change the way everyone sees this relationship forever. At first, the breakup didn't look like a breakup at all. There was no dramatic announcement. No emotional Instagram post. No press statement hinting at heartbreak. To the public, Pierre and Teyana simply seemed quieter. A little less visible together. A little less present in each other's orbit. But to the people watching closely, the silence felt deafening. Because the first real sign that something had shifted didn't come from either of them. It came from the internet. Fans started noticing tiny details that normally would have gone completely ignored. A photo that stayed up, but lost its caption. A comment that used to appear instantly, but never came. A birthday message that fans expected, but never arrived. Individually, none of those things meant much. Together, they formed a pattern that people couldn't ignore. And once fans began paying attention, the timeline started looking strange. Just weeks earlier, insiders described the couple as solid, private, and deeply supportive of each other's ambitions. Aaron was riding a massive wave of career momentum, with projects placing him firmly on Hollywood's radar. Teyana, already a powerhouse across music, fashion, and film, was juggling multiple ventures at once. On the surface, it looked like two people thriving. But insiders say that behind the scenes, the success that should have brought them closer was quietly pulling them apart. According to someone who claims to have witnessed several private conversations between the two, the first cracks were subtle enough that even they didn't realize what was happening at the time. It started with scheduling. Not dramatic conflict. Just logistics. Aaron traveling for international press appearances. Teyana bouncing between studio sessions, fashion commitments, and production meetings. Days where they barely saw each other. Then weeks where time together had to be scheduled like a business meeting. At first, both reportedly brushed it off as a temporary phase. They were both ambitious. They both understood the demands of the industry. But the longer the schedule stretched, the more something deeper began to grow beneath the surface. Frustration. Not explosive frustration, but quiet emotional fatigue. According to a source close to Aaron, he began expressing a concern that sounded simple on paper, but carried far more emotional weight in real life. He allegedly confided to a friend that he didn't feel like he was competing with another person. He felt like he was competing with time itself. Every moment together felt rushed. Every conversation interrupted by a phone call, or another commitment waiting on the other side of the door. And slowly, he began questioning whether their relationship still had room to breathe. Meanwhile, insiders say Teyana was facing her own version of pressure that few people around her truly understood. For years, she had been building an empire piece by piece. Music, acting, fashion, directing. Each opportunity came with expectations that demanded more time, more energy, more focus. To her, slowing down didn't just mean adjusting her schedule. It meant risking momentum in an industry that rarely forgives hesitation. Friends say she believed Aaron understood that reality. After all, he was navigating his own rise. But understanding someone's ambition and living inside the consequences of it are two very different experiences. And eventually, the difference began showing up in conversations that insiders now describe as emotionally loaded. One source claims there were nights where discussions about simple plans would spiral into deeper questions neither of them had intended to ask. Why does it feel like we're always rushing? Why does it feel like we're never in the same moment anymore? Why does it feel like we're drifting? Those questions didn't explode into shouting matches. In fact, that might have made them even more dangerous. Because the conversations reportedly stayed calm, quiet, almost careful. But underneath the calm tone was something heavy building between them. Resentment. Not the kind fueled by anger, but the kind fueled by exhaustion. And once that kind of emotional weight enters a relationship, every small disagreement starts carrying the gravity of something bigger. Then came the messages. Screenshots that insiders say began circulating quietly among friends long before fans suspected anything was wrong. None of them were scandalous. None of them suggested betrayal. But they revealed something far more uncomfortable. Two people struggling to understand each other while desperately trying not to hurt one another. One message allegedly sent by Aaron simply asked a question that insiders claim struck at the heart of the tension. Does love always have to feel like waiting? Another alleged response, said to have come from Teyana, reportedly read like someone trying to explain something that words couldn't fully capture. I'm trying to give everything I have. I just don't know how to be in two places at once. Friends who saw the exchange say it left them uneasy. Because both messages were honest. Both messages were vulnerable. And neither message solved the problem. That moment reportedly marked the beginning of what insiders now call the emotional shift. From that point forward, even when things seemed normal on the surface, something had changed underneath. They still showed up together at events. Still spoke warmly about one another in interviews. Still supported each other publicly. But privately, insiders say the energy between them had started to feel fragile. Then came the night that multiple sources describe as the turning point. A private gathering. No cameras. No press. Just a small group of friends gathered for dinner. It was supposed to be relaxed. A chance to step away from the chaos of their careers for a few hours. But according to someone who claims they were present that evening, the tension between Aaron and Teyana was noticeable almost immediately. Not hostility. Distance. They reportedly sat near each other but barely touched. Smiled during conversations, but rarely made eye contact. And when someone casually asked about future plans, the atmosphere shifted. What followed, according to the source, wasn't dramatic yelling or a public scene. It was something quieter. And somehow more painful. Aaron allegedly admitted that he felt like he was slowly disappearing inside the relationship. Not intentionally erased, but gradually pushed to the background as everything else in Teyana's world expanded. Teyana reportedly responded with a calm honesty that stunned the room. She said she felt like she was constantly being asked to slow down, when she had spent her entire life fighting to speed up. The room reportedly fell silent. Because suddenly the problem between them became clear in a way no one could ignore. They weren't arguing about love. They were arguing about timing. And timing is the one thing no relationship can negotiate. After that night, insiders say both of them tried to repair the damage. Apologies were exchanged. Reassurances were offered. But something fundamental had already shifted. The conversations became more careful. The laughter slightly forced. And the emotional distance that had once been subtle was now impossible to ignore. Still, they didn't break up. Not yet. Because sometimes relationships don't collapse all at once. Sometimes they unravel thread by thread while the world watches from the outside believing everything is still intact. Meanwhile, the internet began noticing small details that only fueled speculation. Fans tracked social media activity like detectives. Why had Aaron stopped commenting on Teyana's posts? Why had she stopped appearing in the background of his stories? Why did their once constant digital support suddenly feel absent? The theories exploded. Some fans insisted they were simply keeping their relationship private. Others suspected something darker was happening behind the scenes. But none of those theories prepared anyone for the moment insiders now say changed everything. Because according to someone very close to Aaron, there was one final conversation that forced both of them to face the truth they had been avoiding. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. But it contained a sentence that allegedly left the room completely silent. A sentence that Aaron would later repeat to a confidant when explaining why the relationship finally ended. And once that sentence leaked, people close to both of them realized the breakup had never been about distance or schedules at all. It was about something far more personal. Something that neither of them had been ready to admit. The sentence that insiders say changed everything wasn't shouted. It wasn't dramatic. In fact, the people who claim they heard about it say the most chilling part was how calmly it was delivered. According to someone who later heard the story directly from Aaron, the final conversation between him and Teyana reached a point where both of them had run out of ways to soften the truth. There were no more reassuring phrases left, no more promises that things would improve once the next project ended or the next tour wrapped. And that's when Aaron allegedly said something that cut through months of quiet tension. He reportedly told her that he didn't feel like he was part of her life anymore. He felt like he was waiting outside of it. That sentence, according to insiders, hung in the air like a thunderclap. Because it forced both of them to confront something they had been carefully avoiding for months. It wasn't that they didn't care about each other. It wasn't that the love had disappeared. It was that their lives had started moving at completely different speeds. Friends say Teyana didn't respond immediately. Not because she was angry, but because she understood exactly what he meant. Her world had become a non-stop storm of opportunity, responsibility, and expectation. Slowing down even slightly felt impossible. And in that moment, the truth neither of them wanted to say out loud became unavoidable. Aaron wasn't asking her to give up her dreams. But he needed a place inside them. According to sources close to both of them, the realization that their emotional needs were colliding with their career momentum was devastating. Because neither of them was wrong. Aaron wanted presence. Teyana needed momentum. And when those two things collide, there isn't always a compromise that keeps everyone whole. After that conversation, insiders say the tone between them changed completely. The tension that had been building for months suddenly felt heavier, because the problem was no longer hidden behind busy schedules or missed calls. It was visible. And once a relationship reaches that point, pretending everything is fine becomes impossible. But what happened next is what turned the breakup from a quiet private heartbreak into a wildfire on the internet. Because somewhere in the middle of those emotionally charged final weeks, a series of alleged messages began circulating among people in their extended circles. Not public posts. Not screenshots blasted across gossip blogs. Private exchanges that insiders say showed how deeply both of them were struggling with the decision to walk away. One message allegedly written by Aaron late at night simply said he didn't know how to stop loving someone who felt further away every day. Another response, believed to have come from Teyana, reportedly said she hated that loving him felt like choosing between him and the life she had spent years building. The messages weren't hostile. They were heartbreaking. And the people who saw them say that's exactly why they spread so quickly among insiders. They revealed something raw that most celebrity breakups never show. Two people trying to let go without turning each other into the villain. But the internet doesn't operate with that level of nuance. Eventually whispers about the messages began leaking beyond private circles, and once fans sensed there was a deeper emotional story behind the breakup, speculation exploded. Every old interview suddenly became evidence. Fans dug through past comments looking for hidden signs. One particular clip from an event months earlier began circulating everywhere. In the video, Aaron is asked about maintaining relationships while navigating a rising career. At the time, his answer sounded thoughtful, but ordinary. Looking back now, people say it feels almost prophetic. He said that success means nothing if the people you love feel like they're watching your life from the sidelines. The clip went viral within hours. Some viewers saw it as proof he had been struggling long before the breakup became public. Others accused fans of rewriting history to fit the narrative. Meanwhile, Teyana's own social media activity began fueling even more speculation. One post in particular ignited a storm. It wasn't about Aaron. It wasn't about relationships. It was simply a caption about protecting your peace and moving forward. But the internet immediately treated it like a response. Twitter erupted. Some fans defended her, arguing she had every right to prioritize her career and independence. Others accused her of ignoring the emotional side of the relationship. The conversation spiraled into a full-blown online war between supporters of both sides. And that's when celebrities started quietly entering the conversation. Not directly, but just enough to add gasoline to the fire. One well-known artist liked a tweet defending Teyana's work ethic. Another actor reposted a clip praising Aaron's vulnerability in interviews. Neither statement mentioned the breakup explicitly. But fans interpreted every move as choosing sides. Within days, the situation had escalated into one of the most dissected celebrity breakups online. But the real explosion was still coming. Because according to someone in Aaron's inner circle, the emotional toll of watching the internet debate his relationship pushed him to a point where he finally confided something to a close friend that he had never publicly admitted before. The friend allegedly shared the moment with another insider, and that's how the statement began circulating. Aaron reportedly said the hardest part of the breakup wasn't losing Teyana. It was realizing how much of himself he had quietly sacrificed trying to keep the relationship stable. That sentence sent shockwaves through their extended circles. because it suggested something deeper than simple incompatibility. It hinted at emotional imbalance. And once that idea started spreading, fans began revisiting everything they thought they knew about the relationship. Was Aaron constantly adjusting his life to accommodate hers? Had he been quietly shrinking his own needs in order to support her ambitions? Or were people projecting their own interpretations onto a complicated situation they didn't truly understand? The debate raged for days. Meanwhile, insiders claim both camps were desperately trying to keep the situation from spiraling further out of control. Publicists reportedly advised silence. Friends urged both of them to avoid fueling the narrative. But controlling a story once it reaches the internet is nearly impossible. Then came the rumor that changed the tone of the entire situation. According to multiple whispers circulating among industry insiders, there may have been one final moment between Aaron and Teyana after the breakup became public. A conversation that no one expected. And the details of that alleged conversation are what truly stunned people close to them. Because instead of anger, instead of accusations, the exchange reportedly ended with something far more emotional. Something that insiders say left both of them in tears. And if what was said during that final conversation is true, then the breakup wasn't just painful. It was inevitable. But here's where the story takes an even more shocking turn. Because according to one source who claims direct knowledge of the situation, Aaron has been holding back one final truth about the relationship. Not a scandal. Not a betrayal. Something far more personal. A truth he allegedly revealed privately that explains exactly why he ultimately chose to walk away. And if that truth ever becomes public, people close to both of them say it could completely change the way fans view this entire breakup. 4 weeks after the breakup became public, the story seemed finished. Fans argued, gossip pages speculated, and both Aaron Pierre and Teyana Taylor appeared to move forward with their lives in the quiet, careful way celebrities often do after a high-profile relationship ends. Interviews stayed vague. Social media posts stayed neutral. No one directly addressed the deeper rumors swirling around the split. But according to people close to the situation, that calm was only surface level. Behind the scenes, Aaron was wrestling with something he hadn't yet shared publicly, a realization about the relationship that had taken months to fully sink in. Friends say it wasn't about anger. It wasn't about revenge. It was about clarity. Because sometimes the hardest truth to accept isn't that a relationship ended. It's understanding why it had to. And insiders claim that during a private conversation with someone he trusted, Aaron finally put the realization into words. The reason he walked away, he reportedly explained, wasn't because he stopped loving Teyana. It was because he began to realize he was losing himself inside the relationship. That statement alone sent shockwaves through the small circle of people who heard it. Because according to sources, Aaron described a slow shift that had taken place over time. At the beginning of the relationship, everything felt balanced. They supported each other's careers, celebrated each other's wins, and made time whenever their schedules allowed. But as their professional lives intensified, the balance began to tilt. Teyana's career demands grew heavier and more complex, pulling her into new ventures, new commitments, and new creative opportunities that required constant focus. Aaron's own career was accelerating as well, but insiders say he began adjusting his life more and more to accommodate the relationship. At first, it felt like compromise. Then, gradually, it began to feel like sacrifice. Not dramatic sacrifice that leads to explosive arguments, the kind that quietly builds over time. Friends claim Aaron started realizing that he was constantly rearranging his schedule, postponing personal plans, and adapting his emotional needs to fit around the pace of Teyana's world. And for a while, he convinced himself that was what love meant. But eventually something inside him shifted. According to someone who heard the conversation firsthand, Aaron explained that he reached a moment where he asked himself a difficult question: was he still building his own life? Or had he started orbiting someone else's? That realization reportedly shook him. Not because he blamed Teyana. In fact, insiders insist he never spoke about her with resentment. Instead, he described the situation as two people growing in different directions while trying to hold onto something that no longer had room to grow. But what truly stunned people in his inner circle was what he said next. Aaron reportedly admitted that the most painful part of the breakup wasn't letting go of the relationship. It was realizing he had been afraid to express how lost he felt inside it. That confession, according to insiders, reframed the entire story. Because suddenly the breakup wasn't about schedules or ambition. It was about identity. About what happens when two people love each other, but begin to lose the space to remain fully themselves. Once that sentiment quietly spread through industry circles, it didn't take long for fragments of the story to leak outward. Not direct quotes, but whispers. People began hearing that Aaron had chosen to step away in order to reconnect with parts of himself he felt slipping away. And once that narrative reached the internet, the reaction was explosive. Fans immediately started revisiting every interview, every red carpet moment, every subtle expression between the two of them, looking for signs they had missed. Some viewers pointed to clips where Aaron looked thoughtful or distant during discussions about balancing relationships and career. Others highlighted moments where Teyana spoke passionately about chasing creative goals and refusing to slow down for anyone. Each side of the internet interpreted those moments differently. To some fans, Aaron's decision looked like an act of emotional courage, choosing personal identity over a relationship that had begun to blur his sense of self. To others, it looked like an unfair narrative that placed the emotional burden entirely on Teyana's ambition. The debate became intense. And then something happened that surprised everyone. Despite the speculation, neither Aaron nor Teyana publicly attacked each other. No angry statements. No messy interviews. No social media shade. Instead, both of them continued moving forward quietly, focusing on their work and avoiding the chaos that had erupted around their private lives. According to insiders, that mutual silence wasn't accidental. It was intentional. Friends say both of them understood that once the internet begins dissecting a breakup, the truth often becomes distorted beyond recognition. Every comment gets twisted, every word becomes ammunition, and every explanation creates a new wave of misunderstanding. So they chose restraint. But that restraint didn't stop the rumors. In fact, it made them grow even louder. Because the less either of them said, the more fans tried to fill in the blanks themselves. Then came the moment that reignited the entire conversation. During a recent appearance, Aaron was asked a simple question about love and growth. For a moment he paused. The room reportedly went quiet. And then he answered with a statement that immediately went viral. He said that sometimes the hardest form of love is recognizing when two people need different versions of life in order to truly become who they are meant to be. That single sentence spread across social media within minutes. Some fans interpreted it as confirmation of everything insiders had been whispering. Others saw it as a respectful way of closing the chapter without placing blame. But either way, the comment reignited curiosity about the relationship. Because now people were asking an even bigger question. If the breakup wasn't about betrayal, drama, or scandal. If it wasn't about cheating or hidden conflicts. Then what made it so emotionally intense that both of them seemed to carry the weight of it long after it ended? Insiders say the answer is simple. Timing. Not the cliché version of bad timing people often use to explain celebrity breakups. The deeper version. Two people who genuinely cared about each other, but whose personal growth demanded different things at the same moment in their lives. And when those paths diverged, love alone wasn't enough to hold them together. Still, those closest to the situation insist the story hasn't completely closed. Because according to one insider, there is still one private conversation between Aaron and Teyana that has never been shared publicly. A final exchange that reportedly brought both of them to tears. And the reason that moment has remained private may explain why neither of them has tried to rewrite the story since. Because sometimes the most powerful truths about a relationship are the ones that never become headlines. They remain between the two people who lived them. But even with that understanding, the internet continues searching for answers. Fans keep replaying old clips, analyzing every word, looking for one final piece of the puzzle that explains everything. And maybe that's the real reason this breakup continues to captivate people. Not because of scandal, but because it revealed something far more uncomfortable about relationships in the spotlight. Sometimes love doesn't collapse because someone did something wrong. Sometimes it ends because two people simply reach different versions of themselves. And realizing that truth can be just as heartbreaking as betrayal. But before you leave, there's something important to remember. Stories like this are still unfolding. New interviews, new revelations, and new perspectives can surface at any moment. One comment, one clip, or one unexpected confession could completely reshape the way everyone understands what really happened between Pierre and Teyana Taylor. So if you want to stay ahead of the next twist before it explodes across the internet, make sure you're subscribed and following closely. Hit the like button so more people can join the conversation, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Because the question fans are still debating right now is simple. Did Pierre walk away to protect his identity? Or was this just a painful case of two powerful lives moving in directions love couldn't hold together anymore? Either way, one thing is certain. This story isn't disappearing anytime soon. Before you click away, take a second and think about everything you just heard. Because if there's one thing Hollywood has proven over and over again, it's that the real story never arrives all at once. It leaks. It surfaces in pieces. One comment here, one interview there, one unexpected moment that suddenly changes how everyone sees the entire situation. And that's exactly where we are right now with Pierre and Teyana Taylor. What we talked about today may feel like the full picture, but insiders are still hinting that more details could surface. Old clips are being reanalyzed. Fans are connecting dots that were invisible months ago. And the moment one of them decides to speak, just a little more openly, the entire narrative could flip overnight. So if you want to stay ahead of the next twist instead of hearing about it days later, when it's already everywhere, now is the moment to lock in. Hit the like button so this story reaches more people who are trying to figure out what really happened behind the scenes. Subscribe right now so you don't miss the next breakdown, the next leak, or the next shocking update that could completely change the conversation again. And most importantly, go down to the comments and tell me your honest opinion. Do you think Pierre walked away because he felt like he was losing himself in the relationship? Or do you think this was simply two incredibly driven people whose lives moved too fast for love to keep up? Your take might reveal something everyone else missed. And trust me, with stories like this, sometimes the most important clues are hiding in plain sight.